What's up, everyone? Mr. NoobTube Gamer. Today we're playing Rogue Company in 2024, 4 years later. This is a game that had a lot of hype and attention back when it first came out, and people said this was going to be like the next big thing in video games, and it got a lot of comparisons at the time to Valorant because that was another similar game that came out during the same time period. A very basic way to summarize Rogue Company, if you're familiar with Valorant, it's basically third-person Valorant. Like, it's a hero shooter inspired by the Counter-Strike series, and you can see a lot of elements from Counter-Strike in this game as well as Valorant, where, you know, buying the weapons and all that kind of stuff, and it being a tactical shooter. It's pretty much, yeah, like a third-person version of what Riot Games is trying to do with Valorant, except Valorant is way more popular and more successful than Rogue Company ever was or ever will be. And that's not me hating, it's just the fact. Like, there were such high expectations for Rogue Company that it was going to be, like, just this huge thing, and it never really materialized. It was popular for a time, but it fell off so much over the years. And I think that just comes down to the success of Valorant and how that game just resonated with so much more people. Especially as a tactical shooter, it just works so much better in first person than third person. Not saying that Rogue Company is not a well-polished game. I would actually say that Rogue Company has some of the best third-person shooting mechanics that I have ever played in an online game. One thing that definitely didn't help Rogue Company was for the first year or so of its existence, it was exclusive to the Epic Game Store. Now, I know that Valorant, since we're comparing the two, is another game that you need a separate launcher in order to have, but people are fine with the Riot launcher, not so fine with the Epic Games launcher and the Epic Games Store. What's even funnier, though, is that I got the game on Epic when it first came out. I tried to play the game again a couple years later, in 2024, and I could not launch the game through Epic Games. It would just take me to a black screen, and then it would instantly crash to desktop, and I would keep trying to go online, look for solutions, and everyone was saying, apparently, the Epic version of Rogue Company is just broken, and you're better off playing the Steam one. Sure enough, I re-downloaded the game through Steam, and it worked perfectly. So, yeah, just another example of how garbage the Epic Game Store is, and why you should not do business with that shitty-ass company. So the game does feature crossplay between PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Unfortunately, they decided last year to shut down the Nintendo Switch version. So to anyone who spent time and money on the Switch, I feel really bad for you because you got fucked over. I know there are a lot of performance problems and shit with the game, so they discontinued it because of that. Still, you shouldn't have released the game in the first place on the Switch if there were such huge problems with it. And yeah, those people got screwed over, every single one of them on the Switch. And it's terrible. But I would say that's like one huge advantage that this game has over Valorant, because Valorant is not on console, and I don't think they have plans on ever releasing it on console, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, if you want like a tactical shooter, especially a free-to-play one, on console, then this is probably your best bet. Unless you're a Nintendo gamer, of course, because as far as high-res is concerned, you can all go fuck yourselves. And one thing that personally pissed me off was that I bought the game before it became free-to-play, like when it was in early access or whatever it was called, so I had to pay like $30 to access the game, and I bought like the, whatever it was called, the Hero Pass or whatever it was, like where you got all the characters from the game, or at least I thought it was all of them. Apparently it wasn't. It was just for Season 1, and then Season 2 onward, you had to unlock them separately and pay separately for a different... Like, I'm like, fuck that shit. Because in Paladins, I paid like $30 for the Champions Pass, and I still get the new champions whenever they come out. Like, 10 years later, I still get the fucking new shit. So, yeah, I was just really disappointed with that, and it kind of turned me off from the game pretty quickly, because I felt like I was deceived. But going back to the game a couple years later, I think it's still fun. Like, it was never a bad game. That was never the problem with the game. I think the issue was that they tried to present this game as this huge AAA online shooter that was going to be, like, the next big thing in video games. But as far as, like, the content updates and everything, they were very sporadic to the point where it didn't really feel like this game got enough support from the beginning, especially compared to its competitors like Valorant and CSGO. But it being a free-to-play game, there's still a lot of people that are online, and it also having crossplay is another big help, so you get into matches almost instantly. No matter what time of the day, you'll get into matches, no problem, so that's not an issue. And that's honestly the biggest thing when we're talking about playing these games in 2024, these older titles. do people still play? That is the number one question. Because a game can be great, but if no one's on, then it's tough to recommend. But for Rogue Company, that's definitely not a problem. The gameplay is good. It can be a lot of fun, especially with friends. Demolition is my favorite game mode. They also have Team Deathmatch, and they have a number of other game modes that like come into rotation, but they're like limited time modes. So I mean, TDM is fine, but Demolition is really like the heart of the game for me. Planning, defusing the bomb, and trying to play smart and not get yourself killed, because it is a no respawn game mode, very similar to how it works in Counter-Strike and Valorant. So yeah, if you play those games, then you pretty much know what you're getting into when you're playing this. And like I said, it's not bad. It probably isn't going to be like the game that you're going to be spending a whole lot of time on. Like, it's not going to be the main game that you're playing, but since it's free to play, it still has a lot of players. There's no reason not to try it out, at least. And I think there's a good chance that you'll like it, at least for a little while. I did for the time that I played it back in 2020 and 2021, but eventually I just got bored, and that's fine. Doesn't mean the game is bad if it doesn't hold your interest for like 5-10 years. Like, not every game is going to be like that, you know? Most games aren't. So yeah, overall, I'd say it's worth playing in 2024.